Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the matinee version of the November 17th, 2022. It is the only version today, so if you're listening or here, welcome. I can remember as a kid growing up in Colorado that matinees were always something great to go to the movies. I mean, I remember getting my friends on our bikes and we would head off to the matinee and either listen to all these kind of great serials, Lone Ranger and
Right.
Captain Video, and I mean, this is Kate and Liz too young. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see how everybody feels about having a matinee type of meeting. So, welcome. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we'll make certain we have a quorum. So, Kate Ryan.
Aye.
Nancy Crowley.
Aye.
And Liz Collins.
Aye.
And Bill Moracek. Aye. So we have a quorum, and we will proceed with the meeting, going to the minutes of October 13th. Are there any additions, deletions, edits, comments to the minutes of October 13th, 2022 that was contained in the packet? All right.
I know none. I know none.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Did you get a chance to read them?
I did, I mean, I wasn't there, so I'm not sure if I should make the action or vote.
I think it's probably.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of October 13th, 2022.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
All right, so all in favor, and I'm gonna excuse you from the vote since you weren't even there. Nancy
Aye.
and Liz
Aye.
and Bill. Aye. So the minutes are completed and admitted into the record. Okay, the next item on the agenda is discussion of personnel study task force report and recommendations. Now, at the last meeting, I presented a worksheet that was the product of my vacation in Oaxaca, Mexico. And what I have done since that meeting is I thought I would create a draft for us to discuss. And the title of this is the Personnel Board Presentation to the Select Board, 28 November 2022. I mentioned at the chair's breakfast that the Personnel Task Force had done a masterful job in providing a lot of information, giving a lot of data for the board, select board, personnel board, and other interested parties to be able to get a sense about what do other people think. So I wanted to make certain that at least the chair's meeting, that I extended our appreciation for all the hard work. So I think there were some hiccups, and that's fine. That happens in any large project, and I actually made reference to a couple in this document. So the purpose here is really to determine, is this a document we want to essentially use as a outline, as bullet points for a conversation with the select board on the 28th, or not? It may be that each of you has her own sense as to what you would like to see. There may be things in this particular document that you would like to have it excluded. So really part of the next phase of our discussion here this afternoon is for each of you to provide your input in terms of, is this a document that you can support? Is this a document that makes sense to have as for bullet points for the select board? Obviously, this is a document that would be sent to the select board in advance. So they had this in front of them. So I wanted to get a start. And that's all this is. I'm open for obviously any critiques, any suggestions, any comments that that you might have. So I think maybe Liz, are you at a point you might be able to offer
Yeah,
some thoughts?
I do, if that's, I'm
That's
just writing, do you have thoughts? And then I'll summarize my own later, okay, for the minutes. So the first thing, so I appreciate that we appreciate the work to start with, because I think that everybody is doing this as, you know, volunteerism as we are. And it was a lot of work to go quickly through for the PSTF members. When we had the joint meeting, and there was a joint meeting over the summer that was very, I think, thoughtful on both sides to try to understand, you know, what is it that we're all looking for the town's best interests. So I really liked that meeting, and I liked the approach. So thank you for that. I guess when I was reading through and I was trying, my first question is, and this is again, my newness on the committee. What are we expecting from this meeting with the select board? Can we clarify that before we get into dialogue? Because what I understand is that it was a town meeting that the PSTF, Personnel Study Task Force, was put in play, and not necessarily by the town manager. Is that correct?
Wasn't town meeting.
It wasn't.
No.
I thought it was the warrant to dissolve this personnel board was brought to town meeting, and it was at that time that it was, no, we're not, the vote was not
We didn't-
to,
We didn't bring it to town meeting. No, we pulled off.
it came before town. Okay, so the warrant proposal was out there, and that was not put forward for town meeting, and that's when the PSTF started. Okay, is that? I saw Bill nod.
A little bit, I think
Yeah.
that we were going to do all of that, and then there was just a lot of backlash, really.
Okay,
We started to review everything and we did not go forward with it. But this task force started in, let's see, June, September. The personnel task force, they've been working for almost a year, haven't they? A year. So they would have had a whole year to work on this.
okay.
So, and we really held on doing anything until pretty much was complete. We didn't submit anything for this test.
So, but it was the select board that said yes to have the PSTF. So they put it forward, is that correct? So I guess I'm just not sure what.
Well, the townspeople, there were people that were upset with the personal board. I mean, this is the way I would take it. That they were upset with the personal board that we weren't doing what we should be doing. We're going to get rid of doing class and comp. And that would leave us as a personnel board with very little to do. And that we would actually be reporting to like the town, doing what the town manager wanted to do. So we were kind of losing our role, to say the least. And Amy, you can probably explain it better than that, but the town really feels that there is a need for the personnel board for employees, is what is our main function.
Yeah,
So therefore, we continue to exist, and we're looking at what the task force found, and we're ready to go. I mean, speaking for myself, I agree. I think that there was stuff after a year, stuff there that they found that we certainly can do better. And so, but I'll leave it to Amy.
Well, so my understanding was that, you know, for years, personnel board members had talked about what their role would be and had particularly said that they didn't think that they should be involved in the business of the classification and compensation, which is very much what the bylaw is all about. And so through discussions from that, there wasn't a proposal to dissolve the personnel board. It was to change that role there and to move it to an advisory role. And my understanding of what had come from the board discussions was that by doing that, it would free up the board to actually then look more at other ways that the board could contribute and be involved in and help. So it wasn't to take more things away, it was to refocus it, go to an advisory, and then maybe at that point, you know,
advisory, I'm sorry, just.
It's an advisory role to the town manager
Town manager.
instead of having the role that right now that with the authority for the class and comp plan and the bylaw. So that's how I understood the proposals and the discussions. And that really there was a priority, you know, the first thing, the idea was first, let's address the known thing that board members had felt were spending time in the wrong place. Let's address that. Then we can move on and look further at what else can we do and what kind of things can we advise on. But as Nancy said, there were concerns from various people about whether that was the right proposal. And so it didn't move to town meeting, and instead the select board appointed a task force to what I thought was going to be was to look at the role of the personnel board and what the, you know, authorities basically should be. If something's in a bylaw, that means the authority is town meeting. You know, what should be the role of town meeting, what should be the role of the personnel board, the town manager, that sort of thing. So that's how I understood the task force going forward, was looking at that structure and identifying what the best structure would be going forward.
All right, so this is a follow-on question. So understood, and I think I've captured pretty well your statement and Nancy, your statement. What my original question was, where and what is the role of the select board in this? So when we bring this proposal to them, where do they stand on this? So now your last statement, Amy, was that select board appointed the PSTF. All right, so they're on board that this examination was necessary. And their expectation, when we bring this to them, how have they been involved with the PSTF? Have they read through the documentation that we've read through? Do we need to give them any background? What is the?
Well, I think that's a very good question. We do have Terry Ackerman, who's here, who can probably give a sense about the viewpoint from the select board. But as I was communicated to, this meeting that's going to take place, on the 28th, there were no specifics given as to an agenda.
Okay.
So my impression, and if I was in the shoes of a select board person, what I would be interested in is simply hearing what do we, members of the personnel board, have to talk about, and what do we, we get to decide what it is that we want to talk about. I decided that we needed to create a structure, because if I was on that select board, I would certainly want to have somebody say, okay, what are we going to do? We've got this information, and that's where the worksheet was essentially the genesis. The details in that worksheet are certainly open for conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And so forth. But my thought, again, I guess, which is I communicated in this draft, is this talks about how to proceed. That's B. And select board to affirm or modify. So I think the select board needs to affirm or modify what we are presenting, which is a worksheet, a work plan. And so I, obviously indicated first priority, establish a plan.
Yeah.
And how to determine priorities. I mean, again, I want to make certain we're as inclusive as possible and necessary. And in an expeditious way. I mean, to take months to come up with this just would be a waste of time.
Yeah, sure.
And then, two there under B is set the goals.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty logical.
Yeah.
And then the last one is who manages the tasks. I mean, somebody has to help decide what the answer to that is, in my opinion.
Okay, so for me, that's very helpful just to open this up and understand that what we're putting together is where the select board is on this. They're up to speed on everything. They are expecting that there's some recommendations that in essence, we're saying we are with this whole packet, we're on top of things. Here's how we see them. And these are the quote to-do lists that we see coming from the work of the PSTF and that we're on board with.
Right.
Okay.
What I want to avoid is any lengthy conversation digging into the minutia of what a conclusion or a fact that was, I mean, the worksheet does provide some rebuttal, but at the same time, I want to move ahead with action, which I think is what the employees want, what the citizens want, and what I want. I mean, we all want that to take place. So this document, this worksheet is sort of I guess, a guide. Liz, does that answer?
Yeah.
We have Terry. That I don't know, Terry. Would you like to just comment on your impressions of the
Well,
select?
I think I completely agree with your approach, Bill. The select board has heard from the Personnel Study Task Force. We've gotten a copy of it. This board tends to read everything and think things through, so that's great. And now, before we come up with any action plan or decide what to do, we think it's very important to hear your recommendations. This whole thing is about the personnel board. What do you guys recommend? What do you see in here that are the top priorities? And what do you see that you disagree with and why? But not getting into a big rebuttal about minutia and not relitigating anything that happened at the employee forum or anything like that. But how do we move forward now? What are your recommendations? So I think you're really on the right track.
Can I help, Liz?
That's absolutely terrific. So what I would like to do is that second paragraph over in overall impression.
Mhm.
If it's all right with you, I'd like to revise it a little bit to capture this
Fine.
conversation, but it's
Great.
along the
Great.
same lines, if we're all in agreement with that. Is
That
that
makes
okay?
sense.
All right.
So I think, let's see, so from a process standpoint, it would seem like perhaps you do what did I call it?
Wordsmithing.
Word changes where you can see what's been added
Yeah,
and deleted, and then that can be sent maybe to Amy, and then Amy sends it to the members of the. I mean, I think we need a review.
Yeah, right.
Process, a cycle here. Does that make sense, or am I off base? Okay.
All right, and sorry, I'm still looking at logistics, but that's the 28th, and the 24th is the Thanksgiving holiday, the 25th is off. So in order to do this in an appropriate timeframe for getting the materials presented, agreed upon by the four of us, when this needs to be done overnight or by the 21st, is that right?
Well, we meet with them on the 28th, right? Monday, the 28th.
But they have to be, the documents need to be posted 2 working days, and we don't have Thursday and Friday.
Right.
So any changes that we come to here, either should be circulated by amongst us either by tomorrow or by Monday. Is that about right?
Yeah.
So do you all have time to, I'm taking notes so I can certainly, try to do that and get it to Amy, to you as quickly as possible. But others might also have then some feedback. So my schedule.
I will say you do a very good job with your notes. Excellent.
You were very kind.
But I know, seriously, really.
But what I would like then to do is to try to make sure my schedule allows me to commit. But if I can get them out to you tonight, Amy, because I know my day tomorrow is very difficult, but I'll try to get the changes then tonight to you. So you all would have time on Friday to look them over. Is that feasible? And then get them back? Or over the weekend, because you need to send them out by Tuesday at the latest, right?
But if we get them back by Sunday night, or what? You have to send, you have to get them out on
Tuesday.
Monday, right?
On Tuesday.
Okay, so that,
Right, that was like,
So
Yeah,
let's
okay.
let's
48
run through
hours.
a couple scenarios.
Yeah.
One is that the document you're gonna prepare.
Yeah.
None of us have any concerns.
That would be awesome, right?
You know, so that's it's a very clean outcome.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Now-
scenario one.
Scenario two
Yeah.
is any one of the others of us
Yeah, disagree. or-
disagrees or, or feels that, we need.
Yeah.
So under that scenario.
Yeah.
I wonder, do we have enough time or are we gonna run out of time?
All right, so what I will dedicate myself to do is that anything that I would suggest changing is only agreed to here. And then I
Oh.
craft it so that we go as close
That's-
as we can to that first
that-
scenario, so
Yeah.
that this 2 hours is the dialogue.
Okay,
And that's why I asked those certain questions, and Terry, thank you for your help there. So in this one, the second paragraph in the document, one of 4 pages, right, or presentation to select boards. What I wanted to do there is just get a little bit more of what we just talked about in there, all right, so, but I won't go beyond that. I won't put my own spin on anything, I'll try to speak to just what is captured in the
Okay.
minutes, okay?
that
And,
makes sense.
all right,
I think that's a good, I think
okay,
that's a good plan.
but I will put it in a doc, is that useful, because that's where you can best track things. Or I'll see it at once doesn't work, okay,
right.
I'll just put it in a Word document
Yeah.
with track changes. So that everybody can see
Yeah.
where it's red changed.
Yeah, I think that.
Okay.
yeah, that's,
Yeah.
okay, that's.
Okay, very good, all right, sorry, but I think logistics are always important to get right before we all,
Right.
know, we're on the same. page.
Right, and Terry has a comment.
I just have a question. I'm glad you brought up all these dates, Liz, because I'm thinking it through. The select board ordinarily gets the packet on the Friday before the meeting, that the offices are closed. So when are you planning to get to the town manager's office, the materials that you want in our packet? Can you get them to Shannon by Wednesday?
We
It
have
actually,
to, right?
by Tuesday,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, great.
hopefully by Tuesday, so that's why we're trying to make sure we have them for the packet on Tuesday.
That's perfect. Thanks a lot.
So everybody knows what I'll be doing tonight. All right, but yeah, I'll make sure to get that, so you have tomorrow to review and send out, okay? All right, for the end of the week, okay, got it.
Did you have some other points though, Liz, that you wanted to add?
So-
I don't want to cut you off, so I just want to make certain you had a chance to respond to any of the additional from a substantive standpoint or a formatting standpoint or a wordsmithing standpoint.
Yes, I have a few comments, but I think, I'm used to life in PowerPoint, so my vision that it's easier for the select board if they have, clear, statements, but I am very willing to understand this is a different environment than the one I'm used to, so I think, the 1, 2, 3 and setting it up is very helpful, and, then that this next section, the work plan details, is really taking 2 and 3 of section B, right, and implementing it in a sense, right?
Yeah,
So,
That's true.
all right, so I would want to make that a little more clear,
Okay,
in just how it's organized,
Okay.
so that, we can have that, that alignment very easy to understand
Mhm,
what's instead of going back. Okay, and then the major elements, I think we started to get to this in your Oaxaca documents, from before, right? With all the communications governments and so forth. So I think that those are very helpful focus areas. And I think we need to, my recommendation would be that on, I see, okay, so you have elements as this, and then you explain the elements in the deficiency section, or is this section 2 and section 3? How do those relate to one another? Is
Well,
section
they-
3 a summary of section 2?
If you,
A lot of it came right off of.
right,
Yeah.
So we just broke all of that down.
I
Okay,
didn't know how to, on my phone,
yeah,
using Excel, be able to, so this is the only way I was able to negotiate that.
yeah, so, but what it doesn't tell me, and therefore I'm worried that the select board will be
Sure.
saying, here's the statement, but it's not, there's not gonna be enough time for discussion on that statement. So for these elements, we have to put our position, right? And as you said, the action and the deficiencies is a good summary, but it doesn't then say, and therefore we commit to, and I think that's what they really need from us, given Terry, your comments as well, this. Here's what we learned, okay, that's good background, but then the to-do list should be like one more.
Right, but that's what we did. We made a to-do list. Or I thought that's what we were doing.
Today.
No, prior to today.
On the November next.
Yeah,
That's what we were.
yeah.
All right, so I think we need that more articulated in your summary, that's all,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
so,
guess, could you go back and explain a little bit more about? Because, well, let me start the
Okay.
premise being what I had intended,
yeah,
which is the focus areas are my 6 areas, of what I derived from the personnel task force.
mhm,
Those I thought were the most critical areas to focus on. Now, there could be wordsmithing, or there could be 7, or there could be 1, but I picked 6.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to do in the elements was to, and elements may be a terrible word, was to try to articulate who were the parties, or what was the document, or what was the key item that needed to be included in some kind of a plan. We had to think about that. So for instance, communication. Well, the communication is the select board, could be select board to personnel board. Now, I mean, all of the parties there, and I think there's one more that should be added out, the citizens. All of that is communications.
Yep.
So we, as a personnel board, would need to, I guess, ultimately decide what the project, the task was going to be. What were we gonna take a look at? But I thought we needed input from the select board. I think there's maybe a good reason to get a contribution from the town manager, as well as the HR organization. And certainly citizens, who obviously have a stake in this as well. So I didn't see us being at a point on the 28th, other than the priority codes that's established for the deficiencies, to be any more specific than that. I didn't think we had to be any more specific than that. That is, these are the deficiencies, these are what we've decided we're going to tackle. And this is the priority that we're giving and recommending of the order in which these are taken care of. Or it was.
So what I did is I did address the focus areas. And I picked out, which I thought, the areas that I had the most concern with. And I kind of looked at each, I picked out like 3 areas, and I put down the stuff that I felt we needed to do about them. And as far as high priority, some of them I felt there was high priority in each area, but that I felt that we needed to move forward on some things pretty quickly. So I did divide them up. I have a communication area, a governance, and an employee relations. Could have put more in, but I felt like there's so much that we needed to figure out how to maybe get what I felt needed to be done soon. So,
Could you just read your topic areas?
Yeah.
I got communication.
so I had communication. Do you want to know what I put in
Yeah.
there? So I put joint meeting with the personal board, the select board, the human rights director and the town manager. I left out the citizens at the time, which they can be there. I just wanted to make sure that we had a meeting so we could discuss exactly all that was found on the task force. I said this will be to look at the present role of the personal board and suggestions for additional items for this role. The select board liaison to the personal board at scheduled meetings needs to happen. We need to have that person at our meetings. And the meeting schedule needs to be set up in advance. These are things that can be done right away. The personal board members need to increase to 5 if possible. The personal board packets need to be sent out 72 to 48 hours. Or the opposite, 42 to 74, well, 72 to prior to the meeting, so we would have our stuff ahead of time. And then employees need to have feedback on our HR issues. Those were just some of the things that I felt like could be done on under communication, because I think to me, communication is really the key. I just think it's the huge one big piece. Do you want me to go on?
Yeah.
Okay, so under governance, I put, we need to review of the personal bylaws and determine if any change to the current bylaws would be needed for the town meeting in April, and would we even be able to do anything, since we really have, I think it's usually December 6th or something on a Saturday, this stuff is discussed, so it seems to me that we have, what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks or something. So I put that in there, and then I just put work with HR Gov for any updates on the common class system presently being reviewed. I don't know if there's anything that can be given to us at the time that will help us move forward without waiting until June. Like, I'm not sure on that. Review the personal policies and procedures. And I know that Amy has a copy of the personal policies and procedures for all of us and the bylaws. And then review of job descriptions and other personal board documents as scheduled. I don't know how often these things are done. Common class, we now know, but to make sure that we put them on a list so that we're always ready to help Amy go through this. The employee relations was the last one, but there could have been so much more into that, but I put the employee lack of understanding in relation to the personal board role, the personal policies and procedures. I just think that's a huge area that we really need to help them to understand. I have here, whether an employee monthly report or a newsletter. I do know there are some things done. And also I still think that an employee handbook would be great for when somebody is new and gets an employee handbook. And these are things, I mean, some of the stuff's going to take a while. I understand that, but they were just things that I thought that might help their relationship. And of course, them being able to come to the board. Sort of first go to HR where they should go, and then hopefully if they need to come to the board. So those were, I mean, there was so much there that I could have done more, but to me, these were the ones I felt like we needed to really look at. That's it.
Comments or?
So, I mean, I know I'm very new, this is my second meeting, so forgive me if I'm asking questions that have already been answered, but I guess I thought, and I think Bill articulated this, that our plan for today was to sort of map out what we think are the priorities to bring to the select board. So not necessarily making recommendations for how we're going to move forward, but here are the areas that we need to focus on in the short term and the long term. We have this bigger plan. So that's how I approached it. I didn't come with specific recommendations for what I think the personal board should be or how we should move forward. And I think, I mean, the areas that I focused on were I guess. The governance issues were actually, it was more along the lines of, let me just pull the actual. Sorry. There were a few that really sort of popped out at me was sort of compliance issues with existing bylaws, which I think you had mentioned last time, and sort of, I guess I wanted. I'm not sure how to capture that with how we speak to the select board and what we recommend, but that to me is first and foremost. If we're not in compliance, then we need to look at that very closely. Because there are legal ramifications for whether we're in compliance or not. So I'm not sure where that falls in I guess that is governance. And then the communication issues, I mean, I honestly, in every organization, there's a challenge around communications and how to communicate changes effectively to your employees, all the stakeholders involved. And I think, I mean, we just approved that or approved the title for the communications manager. I think that having that sort of have an internal communication source will help with that. But I see that more as a long-term priority than a short-term. And then, you know, my understanding of the personnel board, like the bylaw and crafting a new bylaw is not something that we may not be able to have for this town meeting. So again, that's sort of a longer term priority. I mean, it is on the table and I think we should discuss it and maybe, you know, we can bring the select board into to sort of craft that. But I think compliance for me is the biggest issue. And then, you know, and then also, you know, being responsive to employees, I mean, that's really important, but I think that sort of wraps in communication and maybe education and almost sort of, you know, if employees feel like they don't understand our personal bylaw and or policies, then maybe there needs to be some sort of education campaign or a monthly newsletter or something to sort of keep them in the loop, which I know is a lot of work. But I guess that's where I sort of fell and what I reviewing.
Actually, my sense, and I think Kate, you captured it, was we want to stay at somewhat of a strategic level at this point with the select board. And that the tactical piece, that is how we're going to improve communication or how we're going to tackle the job description, that is not what I thought we would want to address. That's a subsequent, you know, there's a lot of work there and the personnel board will have to be a catalyst in many respects. But I wanted to avoid getting into tactics because I think we need to allow the select board to, you know, chime in on what their thoughts are and what their, you know, strategic sense is. Now, I do think that we need to figure out how do we include the town manager and the HR organization into the thought process or into the review of this document. And if there are citizens input, then we certainly want to respect that as well. So, but I was trying to, you know, I was trying to keep it at a higher level, at high level as possible, and I wanted to not burden us on the 28th with the tactics, because that has all kinds of people have all kinds of opinions on tactics, and that I think that's a subsequent discussion. I mean, tactics are fine, but I think it has to come in subsequent time. That's my
Bill, I think we're saying the same thing, actually, because the tactics, and I agree, I think those are, you know, how do we get the change done? Is, you know, it does get into roll up your sleeves and see who's going to do and what meetings, et cetera. And that's not what a select board meeting needs to hear about. I agree with you completely. What I was trying to get at is therefore, we need that statement for each of the priority areas that we agree to about where's it directionally going. We need a line, just a sentence for each of them. Communication. We agree it has to be better with employees. It has to be improved between X, Y, and Z committees. That's it. Not say how it will be improved, but that we recognize, and Nancy gives some nice language that I captured, maybe I'll steal your notes later, make sure I got it all. But to, make sure that we do that above statement so that we in spirit are going in the right direction. And then the governance piece. So right now, and Kate, I think you're spot on that, anything that's out of compliance is certainly has to be dealt with. That would be an important statement to say, right? So for me, the governance piece has another very important area, which I'll try to capture after I speak in the minutes, but that is that the coordination. So one of my impressions from all the reading and the understanding of what has gone on over the last year is that there were things that the personnel board was not and I'm going to use the word able to effectively engage without the right information, without the right engagement with different offices. And my impression is that that's a statement we would want to say about governance. So governance is a team effort in what I'm understanding. The personnel board doesn't act alone. We have to understand where the town manager is going. We have to have regular meetings. So a tactic would be regular meetings. But the idea that the personnel board is appropriately engaged on a regular basis with the town manager, the HR department, that we with the select board, so that there's that attitudinal approach to things, and then the tactics later. But I would say stipulate the bylaws must be addressed as soon as possible as the top priority because it's a compliance issue. So for me, governance is those two things, and those are the top one. Then we get into tactics in another meeting. That's not. But this is directionally, are we picking up on the things in the PSTF report that are agreed to? So I don't think anything I'm saying is actually out of line. I don't want to go to tactics either. I think communication is also really important, and it's just that overarching statement, communications, and the elements are who's involved. That might be fine to just list them at the end. What are the elements or the groups to be involved, but the statement is communication across town government and between town government and employees is a top priority to ensure the appropriate working of the personnel board, or some statement like that. Does that sound along the line acceptable to?
Well, let me just comment briefly.
Yeah.
I think well, what if we did this? What if we incorporated, and I'm not sure what you'd call it though, but incorporated, maybe it's the personnel board position, but you after the major items on the worksheet, that's where that goes. It's the personnel board position, which essentially allows for commentary on communication. Then you've got the elements, because then that articulates who are the parties, who are the constituents. And then, I mean, is the addition of a column, at least in the worksheet, satisfy, you think, what you're trying to accomplish?
So if we're going, and sorry if it was online, but I'm looking at the the Excel actual situation and goal, priority goal. I think priority is probably necessary, probably at this point, given that we don't want to get too much in the weeds, that the actual and the end goal might not be needed. But if you did communication, and then for elements and cited deficiencies, you lowered it down and you gave an overarching statement of where the direction of communication is that we're talking about, that's all I'm asking for. And then the elements and the cited deficiencies can be backing that up, because we'll recognize.
So maybe we're saying the same thing, maybe not, is that
Yeah.
we're going to create, at least using this worksheet, another column. And that
Okay.
column essentially is where your point is articulated. That is, this is the direction that the personnel board sees or agrees or whatever. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'd like to, in some way, keep it. I guess I'm have some kind of a template that, makes it easier for people to navigate and understand what it is that we're addressing. What, adding your column for the personnel board position again, I'm not sure what the right word is. And yet we keep the worksheet as simply a template that's our roadmap.
All right, so we have this draft documents, right? And we have the Excel spreadsheet.
They're essentially the same.
All right, so,
Yeah, if you put them like that, right?
okay. All right, I have a pen somewhere.
So can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a wrench in the works, but I can do what I do. I guess I don't, I don't feel like we have a position on some of these. I mean, and so I'm concerned about putting a position forward that we haven't really, and again, my second meeting. But I don't know that I have a position it's more like I have a recommendation for things that I think we could focus, that the select board could focus on and prioritize. So,
Okay,
maybe that's semantic, but
no, I think you've expressed it well.
Yeah.
You're right, we have not had any real conversation, even about the report, let alone the specifics. So how each of us feels, we almost would need a motion, and then we vote, and that's our position.
right,
But we don't have time for that.
yeah, no, agreed.
And so therefore, is that then the next question in my mind is, okay, if we don't have enough time to do that, and it's a worthy, it's a worthy point. What do we do?
I mean, not to be, again, the wrench, but I'm not sure that we have time to make a recommendation for the 28th. Is that?
I think you're right. I don't think we,
I don't.
on all of the various.
And probably that's because I'm brand new and I'm still sort of, learning my way and understanding what's going, the document, but I feel like there's just so much here.
Mhm.
That I don't want to make a recommendation prematurely without really understanding everything involved.
So Liz, what are your thoughts as you listen to?
So I'm just gonna
feedback here.
repeat what Terry, as the select board liaison, said to us. And now we've heard from the PSDF, and now we'd like to hear your recommendations, your top priorities, and what we agree and disagree with about how to move forward. So it doesn't mean we're gonna answer, we're not gonna go into the tactics or something, but we have listed and agreed to this template of what the focus areas are. And I don't think it's one step farther to have a sentence after that saying, we agree that this is a priority area. And around communications, to say that the communications are across the elements that you've listed, and as Nancy's interjected today, employees and the relationship, for new employees, a handbook and so forth. So those are tactics, we don't have to put those down, but they are saying that more communication with employees that is consistent is agreed. And I'm sorry, I think that's, if we are not ready to make a sentence about what we think about those priorities, I'm thinking we're wasting the select board time at this point in time. I mean, because I don't see why, these are very helpful, but they're summary, they're just taking the categories from the PSTF. We're not saying directionally, all those maps they've had, is it going blue, is it going red? Directionally, that's all we need to do, is say a sentence that says directionally, we agree more communication.
But I kind of feel like the overarching question is what, and I think it said it in here, what the personnel board should be in the future. And that is the big picture, that's the big question. And all of these feed into that. And so I feel like we're telling, if we're sort of recommending a direction or, these are the priorities, we're implying that that's what we want the personnel board to.
And we are, though, that's why we.
But I guess I'm not sure I'm there yet.
Okay, but this is your second.
I know, I'm
But we've been dealing
I
with
know.
this, we've met with the PSTF and we've had a lot of interaction over the materials. Those materials haven't just been put to us once, right? We've
No,
seen
okay.
them for a long time. So the idea that we came to this with Bill's spreadsheet and said, yes, those look like the right areas for us to, the focus areas for us to identify. We agree that these areas are the right focus areas. We're already there. So, you know, respectfully, you need to catch up on that. That's fine. You're only in 2 meetings, right?
Yeah.
But we have been looking at these areas for a while. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess my comment is.
Yeah.
I've accepted the deficiencies that I call cited deficiencies.
Yeah,
As facts.
okay,
That was specified by the task force.
okay, yeah,
So I'm not gonna question. Now, there are a couple exceptions, those statements that were made, but I'm saying, okay, these are the deficiencies. These are the ones we're gonna tackle. And I'm trying to incorporate your point, Liz,
yeah,
as what's the value? What's the value added at this particular juncture before the select board? Before we've even had an opportunity to show them at least some of our preliminary thinking.
but that is the
But
preliminary.
that is, yeah, that's exactly what I thought, that we weren't gonna go, I mean, that we were gonna go and show them the areas that we really focused on. And some of the areas that under them, that we were concerned about. And we're trying to figure out, what their thoughts were on our role in some of those areas. What were their thoughts as well? I don't think we were saying anything specific. I do feel there are some things that I felt that we should look at. But I think that, I don't think it's by going before them, it rules out going back again with a different area.
So my sense, Nancy, is that the points you've made, good points, are incorporated already in the deficiencies. That the task force has already identified the points you've made there as deficiencies.
Right,
But now we're
So
saying
now-
now the personnel board, we are taking those,
right.
agreeing.
And we, particularly like by having somebody, by setting up a meeting with them coming, some of the things that I've put in here are ways of trying to address some of that. And how do they feel about some of those? So I kind of thought it was a little bit of a go back and forth, but maybe I'm wrong.
Where's Terry? Terry?
Carrie?
To clarify, I think it would be helpful. I think the template is really good that you're structuring it. But there are many things on there that have to be done. So we have other boards and committees that we have to deal with as well. So in this document, can you add another column if you think something's a really high priority or a short-term thing that we should do right away versus something that's a lower priority or a longer term, or maybe that's 2 different columns. But I think that we need that structure, that thinking from you. What should we focus on first? Not how to do it and all that, but what are the real top takeaways that need to be done?
I think,
Right.
Bill, you had the priority code,
Right,
right?
that was,
Yeah.
that addressed, I mean, that the
You
intent,
didn't fill it out though, right? That's,
you haven't told it.
I
filled it
haven't
out.
filled it out. Okay, all
But
right.
yes, it's exactly that was exactly the
Yes.
intent.
Yeah, and that's
Of
kind
that
of what they
column.
want.
Is to, yes, I mean, if we were all to fill this sheet out and the priority, we would very easily be able to say, in this case, they're identified them as high, can be completed within the next 6 months. That will, I think, address what do we feel is most important that has to be done.
So we're an
So-
hour in, right? And I think if we agree to the priorities and then agree to us, I I'm pushing for the statement about what we mean about communication governments and the other categories, the focus areas.
Yes, I hear you, and I don't know how we get a uniform consensus about what, what it means. I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying, how are we going to accomplish that? In and out.
So,
Well, do we look at some of the things that I brought,
yes,
that you brought, and decide where they fall into place? That to me would make sense. And we could do that now.
so Nancy, you're suggesting we prioritize and then say a statement about each in the order of priority.
Just which ones that we feel like we need to work
Okay.
on, some things are very simple, particularly under communication that I wrote. I mean, that's why I.
Yeah.
Put them. Some things are, so, yes.
Well, I'm still a little concerned about what our objective is.
Give them recommendations.
That's
That's what Terry told us was their request is, I'll read it.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate hearing that again.
Sure. So Terry, I'm using your words. Select Board has heard from the PSTF, and now we'd like to hear your recommendations. Top priorities and what we as Personnel Board agree, disagree with, but how to move forward.
Right.
I mean, if.
So
okay.
if you just add another column, like I would suggest if you guys go through each item and just say, is this a high priority? Or if you're undecided, maybe it's a medium priority. But maybe you have a consensus that there's 2 or 3 items that are really jumping out at you. Because obviously we're not going to get all this done in year 1. But what do you want? What's really important there? Can you add another column about that? Or what's short term that's what do they call it? Low hanging fruit that we can get done quick. Do you have any suggestions on that? If you add a column, I
think Terry, that is in fact our priority column.
We could just go line by line and walk through it, that might be the.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. I'm still not sure though we're gonna satisfy
Yeah,
the point that Liz has
yeah,
brought up by doing that.
no, agreed.
So,
We might.
well, I guess.
I already heard the same, I've heard compliance, communication,
Yeah.
employee engagement at least 4 times.
Yeah.
That is
Governance.
what's gonna come from this conversation, what's important. And that is sort of like a vision statement, why are you here? You're volunteering your time to be here. You're helping the employees, you're helping the organization, your town. Well, what is so important about this town that you're volunteering your time and taking time out of your schedule to be here? To me, I think it's about communication, there's employee engagement here. Maybe there's better ways to do it, and that's down the road, but what are the key topics that you've seen and heard from the task force? One other thing, if I may, I'm sorry, Bill, I interrupted, I didn't mean to. I'm just trying to be helpful. One thing though, as someone who's so new to the town, I just realized we've got 3 veterans and we've got 3 newbies, so, and I'm one of them, and whenever I have info overload or analysis paralysis, I like to step back and say, what are we doing here? Whose role is it? What are the responsibilities? So you can sort of, look for the forest. Because for a while I felt like I was looking at pin needles, dissecting that report in a million directions. And so one of the things that I did is I made a copy of the administrative code for the personnel board. And it's very recent. It's newer than the Constitution. It was written June 24th of 1985. And I thought, wow, a lot of things have changed in that amount of time. I wonder if the focus of the personnel board might need to be, take the top two and pass it around.
Oh.
And it occurred to me that it's so old that maybe, Amy and I were talking about how much has changed just since the last time, these policies or this bylaw was written. So it stands to reason that one of the things that seems a little bit confusing to me right now is, what is the personnel board role? What are the responsibilities, and how can we all work together with the select board to get to better communication, better employee engagement, and make sure we're in compliance. So I saw this as one way, one, not to add more paper, but one more consideration, which is to get back to basics. If we had to do it, 1985 is a long time ago. There's a lot of new technology. Communicating with people is probably, you could say it's easier, but it's more complex. But we have tools, and we haven't really thought about that.
So
So what,
right now, we're not supposed to get to
You're
tools, right? Tactics,
Exactly.
tools, similar terms.
yes.
I do think what we need to do is say, go down Bill's list.
Yeah.
Say priority, do we agree?
Yeah.
All right,
There you
and then a statement, and I think we can do 5 statements in that one.
Okay.
Let's, Kelly, thank you for,
Thank you.
Sorry.
I just.
it's right out of tunnel. I mean, the difficulty here is, I think we all sort of feel time pressure.
Yeah.
And we also know that,
The bylaw
and we
needs to
also know,
change.
and we also know that we all have opinions about this and they need to be respected and as well as the citizens. So, we have a lot of constituents here, but I think to move forward, let's go through the list. They're essentially looking at the site deficiencies and deciding what's the
Are
priority.
we looking at this?
Yeah,
this-
Yeah.
So,
Just, no, I don't know.
so the first one,
This needs to get updated, we're not gonna get into tactics.
yeah, so the first one, decided any cited deficiencies is lack of select board and personnel board interface, no joint meeting in last 10 years.
Right. I think that's a priority. I would like to see somebody at our meeting. Is anybody?
So we're going to accomplish that on the 28th.
Right.
Right.
So
But we have to normalize. That's the.
we do, but we certainly, in terms of no meetings in the last 10 years.
So we will talk about it on the 28th as well.
Well, I don't think we're going to be able to.
All right. That's all right.
I would put that as a lower priority, honestly, based on some of the other lists.
At the point,
It's important. Right.
it's going to happen on the 28th.
Exactly, which is partly why it's a little lower priority, but. It's
Okay.
important, but it's not on my top of my list.
So would you give it a moderate or give it a low?
Middle
A low, okay.
low, but that's just.
Anybody else?
I'm
Anybody
happy
else?
to be.
I mean,
Low would mean 12 to 24 months.
4 months,
Yeah.
I disagree. I think it needs to be M at least, because it has to be done this year. I mean, one meeting is a start, but within the next 6 months, have a second meeting.
Mhm.
So I'd like M on that.
I mean, a liaison from the board usually is at the meetings that liaison reports to or covers over. And I just feel like that, maybe if they've been at the meetings, not their fault, not our fault, I'm just not saying that, but prior to, we might not have gotten to where we're at. I mean, they might have been giving us stuff along the way. So, I know there's other stuff that is very important, like bylaws and stuff, but I do think that that we should see them more often. It'd be nice to see them in every meeting.
We can just make that lower.
Well, we're gonna, everyone okay with M?
I'm.
The next one is the employees not informed of proposed bylaw changes.
H.
Yeah, I think that's an H, that's an H.
Oh, I'm not on that same page, where there's another page.
No,
Oh, here it is.
well,
No,
it's.
You guys,
It's what I-
it's gonna,
Oh.
line item, not just the overall.
oh, okay. All right,
Okay, so that's an H.
yes,
The next one is HR not providing monthly reports.
High.
Well. Maybe that's because I'm an HR professional and I know how much work goes into those types of reports. And
Well,
it's.
High. We can't do our job without data.
I just think it's important.
I would do moderate.
I did high to moderate. A little bit of a,
We could do higher.
Twist, but-
I'm okay with that.
but we can't do our job without data. Interesting statement. Deserves conversation, I think, but let's
Yeah.
defer that for conversation. Let's decide on which
The
What is-
problem
what's
is
the
if we
code?
get monthly reports and we know everything that's going on, we're better informed to do our job as a personnel board.
Okay, that's Liz's point. I think.
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay,
We're on the same page.
yeah, it's just,
Okay, so we're gonna put I. The next one is employees' lack of understanding or knowledge of. And the next A, B, C, and D are all underneath 4. Employees' lack of understanding and knowledge of.
I'm thinking maybe once we do some of the top high priorities, it will come to filter down to them. We had talked before, I put in something about trying to have a meeting with them more often than just the yearly meeting, but having monthly.
That would be the tactic.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, any other thoughts in terms from Kate and Liz? I put down M.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay, I'll go.
right.
I also put M and really referring to your timeframes.
Yeah.
Within 12 months.
Yeah.
that we have a regularized process for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, then we go to personnel board not being advised of employee complaints or issues.
So I have a question about this. So, and I know it's in the personnel board or the bylaws, but is that required of the administrative code or of the bylaw? And I just wasn't sure. It's not required, right? So I guess I'm confused by why that's in.
Well, it's in there because it was cited as a deficiency by the task force.
But it's not an authority, so it's not mapped out in our bylaw, as something that the personnel board does, right? To hear.
Well,
grievances?
I think that, yeah, we hear grievances, and that's a part of the person bylaw.
Yeah.
Okay.
This point, I guess, is that we're not always advised of employee complaints or issues. Well, I think if there's an official complaint, I mean, like we've got one right now, we're gonna know about it. The word issues is a
Yeah, that's
is a
broad
very
term.
generic, a very difficult one to define for sure. I mean, I don't necessarily at all see us requiring the town manager to, if there's an issue with parking and the employee parking. I mean, I don't see that's our domain
Right.
to worry about employee parking, or, I mean, that's an absurd example, but I can't think of another one off the top of my head.
Right.
And if in fact there's issues, which we have with classification, well, we're gonna know about it, because that's
Right.
part of the personnel bylaw. To do that.
Are you thinking of more of HIPAA with us talking about it in a personal board meeting with to other citizens in town?
No, I just wanted to understand what the.
I'll be honest with you, that's how I felt initially.
Yeah, I just want to understand what the authority of the personnel board was when it came to complaints. I mean, issues is a broad term, and so that could be anything from I stubbed my toe to, you know what I mean? But an official formal complaint of, I'm not being paid what I should be, or I'm not getting vacation, and I was told that's a different story.
We have the first PPP 25, where's that?
Right,
As the
right, the appeal process.
right,
Right.
as
Which does
the
come.
source document or source citation for our
Okay.
role.
All right,
So we
And
can
it's the
say,
employee.
we don't agree with issues, but complaints specific that are,
yeah,
I mean, I think crossing that out
Yeah,
would
I would
be a.
take issues away, that's too
Yeah.
broad, and I would, for me personally, I would call that low, because I agree with Bill that if there was a formal complaint. Through that appeal process, it would come to us anyway, right?
If the employee chooses to, so it's
It's
a
a
step,
choice.
it's a step, they go through, it's a standard grievance procedure, you go through from the supervisor to the department head. And employees have that appeal procedure, they choose not to bring it to the personnel board and do it in that kind of a setting, but it's up to the employee of whether they want to move it forward.
Probably be
And maybe
low on the
there's
list,
other tips.
unless they brought it to us, and that would become high.
It's interesting because in private industry, I think the boss doesn't want to be surprised. And so arguably, personnel board doesn't want to be surprised. And therefore, how do you not be surprised? You don't be surprised because there is some kind of communication of this is going on. Nothing of any more detail on that. But we don't have that. And I'm not sure we need or want that, but that I think is part of the issue,
Uh,
part of the discussion.
whether we should need or want that.
Right, you know, should we be in a position where we get a heads up? Heads up doesn't mean it's gonna happen, it just means, it could. And I'm not sure that's our role, but I think that's
So two comments, and I'm now blowing the note taking. I apologize, but I'll try to get just our summary, right? Not our detailed conversation and part of the discussion. So the first thing, because I was also in healthcare, in my role is HIPAA is really health related, right, information, right? It's not the same for public employees. They have more transparency. So I just want to be clear about that because I lean on that myself.
I
in my
know,
mind, okay? So so there's a differentiator there. And then the other point related to what you just said, it's trailing out of my mind right now, Bill. What was it now? You said, should we get a heads up or not? Okay, so then my mind is thinking, and why would we need that? Well, because what we're looking at is the personnel board is, and some of the general trend in this report is that the employees don't have an outside the procedural employee, which means their boss or HR department. This is a different process that they are to use when, like an ombudsman in a big company, right? Where you say there's something that I can't manage through the system. And so having a heads up, or like we're dealing with now, the employees are saying, we're not congruent with how this decision was made, and we want more eyes on this fact, right? So the idea that we would then therefore require a heads up, because the underlying issue that we're actually trying to get at is having employees feel confident that they have recourse. Right?
so let me make certain I understand the point. So are you supportive of a heads up or you?
Yes,
Okay, so.
yes, because that is their ombudsman. Something outside of the procedures, which are their boss or the HR departments, right?
So let me play devil's advocate,
Sure.
which is. We have to be very supportive, I think, of the management of the town.
Yeah.
And the managers whose job it is to manage,
Yes,
and they should have training to be able to fulfill that role.
right.
And we should not be in a position that the managers feel we're impinging
Yeah.
on their ability, their role, because then we should be much more heavily involved in the management.
So
So that's devil's advocate.
And the response to that is, how many complaints in a big company go to an ombudsman? That's a huge step to take. It's very serious, right? Outside of the normal controls, which are the management and the HR department, right? To manage those things, because you never want to blow things up, right? So we be in that role, getting a heads up that there might be something coming isn't going to, in my view, disturb the normalized processes.
So when you make that point.
Yeah.
Where is this information going to come from? Who is the source or sources?
That's what I was gonna, if it's an employee's choice to take it to the personnel board, then why would we get a heads up if they're working? I guess I don't.
Well, how did this current one come through? It came through HR that they wanted to bring it to the personnel, or did they bring it? How did the mechanism work?
Yeah, they followed the process and the policy that they first went through and talked with other levels, and they decided that they didn't get a result or the answer that they wanted, then they followed that and moved it to the personnel board. It was done a little bit outside of the policy, it actually doesn't neatly fit into that, but that's what we're following, and so that's why it's to the personnel board. We have, and that's their choice, and we have employees that might have a concern about a disciplinary matter or something like that, that I don't know You know, I mean, again, I think it would be their choice on whether to bring it to the personnel board
Yeah.
rather than us at a public meeting. Talking about something that's going on. with-
Exactly, that's a big step, right, to
Right.
do it in a public meeting,
Right.
so I think that. Your impression may be that this could open a Pandora's box, and my impression is that would never happen. Because it is a public meeting where you have employees that really wanna do well and be feeling good about their work and their job, so I don't see this as being a very commonly used apparatus, but.
So I guess getting back to how we would rate it, then,
Right.
I mean, to me, I think that means it's it's a lower priority, because. To me, I mean,
Yeah, I put down low, but if it was brought to us, it would become a high. I mean, that's the only way I look at it.
Yeah,
Are you okay with the low?
yeah, I'm okay with that.
Let's,
All right,
I'm really am sensitive about the timing.
yeah,
Minimal reporting to citizens of basic employment data.
I don't even know what that means, basically.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't, you know,
Is it?
it's not clear.
Wage classification,
So that's part of the, you know, part of the
Maybe.
task is gonna be, okay, what do they mean?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
right now, we have to decide, okay, based on what we believe,
I
Is
say
it-
that's low,
low, medium, or high.
just because I don't understand.
Yeah, the only thing I was thinking of is, would that be like your newsletter? Would that be like?
No, I think that's,
The citizens, not an employee.
and this is.
Oh,
basic.
citizens, oh, okay.
I think this is basic. What's the head count?
Yeah,
What's the turnover rate?
That's all included in the warrant, well, I know, the wage and classification,
But
So-
on a,
yeah, I see what you mean,
anyway,
yeah.
Low?
Low.
Okay. Then we're gonna go to minimal reporting. Okay, then we're gonna go personnel board information packets longevity issue on town websites. Well, that's an easy one to deal with. I mean, we just,
I think it should be high though.
yeah, and I mean, I think it should be high and we can accomplish that yesterday. Probably did. So, are you, let me just double check here. Is everyone feeling okay, comfortable with sort of what we're doing? Or what we're not doing? Okay, Liz, are you?
I am, and I've written a sentence that captures the discussion, I believe,
Okay.
to see what you think, all right, and again, I'm recommending that goes on top of the communicate, what do we mean by communication? The personnel board recommends enhanced communications across the town related to personnel governance, employee relations, and transparency of personnel board information.
I mean, that's pretty good.
But it captures the points that we kept in the high category.
Because-
All right, so that would be
Hmm,
Can I
done, honestly.
Yes,
I question the term of employee relations, I guess I just am not sure what that.
It refers really to some of these things, but also to what Nancy had highlighted in her comments earlier. That the employees are not feeling that they're getting enough information, new employee onboarding, but we're not gonna get into those.
No,
topics.
I guess I'm
That's
the first thing, I guess I'm,
that was a huge thing.
or, I'm not sure I would call it employee relations in terms of communication, but
Okay, so employee
employee education.
engagement, maybe
Employee
engagement.
engagement, okay, engagement is broader
The
than.
huge
Yeah.
issue also the personal task force.
We're gonna move on to personnel board meeting irregularly and no set meeting date or time. And I think we've been making some good strides
Right.
about, you know, we've got a
Right.
calendar months in advance, so I mean,
Yeah.
I would put high, that's.
I would,
important.
yeah, I know.
The next one is job description shortcomings. Job descriptions is a huge topic. You can parse it in many different ways. And I said, you know, I think it's a moderate because there's too many things to put it. I mean, it just, you can't, we're not gonna be able to do it
No,
and ask the,
I would put it, well, just knowing how long it takes to manage and update and
right.
edit job descriptions, I would actually put it a low, the 12 to 24 months, because that's a huge job. I mean,
We usually too, anything that's coming up to be reviewed, we'll see a job description, we go through it at a regular meeting, or if there's some new one. So it's not like we don't get to see some, but I guess there's tons that we don't see, but. In the look, yeah, I mean, I would agree in the light of everything, I think that's something that we would have to put off a bit.
So you would give a low on that item? 12 to 24?
12 to 24. I'm not sure, Amy, how bad, I mean, how off are the job descriptions?
Well, we probably update about 25 to 30 on the year easily. We've got 200, and just on the class and comp plan, we've also got the not the union ones and things.
And
like
are they
that.
being done on the
And
class and comp?
they're all being
Okay.
looked at right
Okay.
now, all the rest of the class and comp plan. I know that there are some, I think this came from the thought that some hadn't been updated since 2008. But even some of those there aren't any really significant updates that have been needed, is what on some of them that we found. And that doesn't mean that there aren't a few out there that their jobs changed a lot more and we missed, but
Well, it
we
sounds
have a job
like
description for all of them and.
that's being taken care of,
Checked off the list
right?
by the end of the year.
Okay.
So are we, is this a moderate or is this a low?
Hello,
Sorry to
all right,
put a wrench in this a little bit, but if you look at the elements and then you look at the cited deficiencies, I don't think that they align well. So what I'd like to do is say personnel bylaw, PB charge, personnel board charge, and then PPP.
Policies, procedures.
Okay, I think we need to take those as H. And this gets back to what Kate said earlier, that if we're out of compliance of something, and then we can say, and I think that the frequency of classification system and elements review, and then the other things are subordinate to that is an H on that. But it seems to me that the bylaws, the updating of those documents should be a high priority in and of themselves.
right.
You see what I mean?
I do, the only, issue that I see
Yeah.
that may be contrary is,
The bylaw has to
We-
do something.
well, we have already talked about in a sort of general terms, not specific, that there are aspects of the personnel bylaw we want to change,
Yeah,
should be changed,
right,
and have been discussed among previous personnel boards. We have 3 weeks to be able to submit. And we're not going to accomplish that this year because we don't have enough time.
all right, so, but could we say that caveat? We think this is a very important priority.
Sure.
And given the procedures of the town, it won't make it by the next town meeting warrant. Unless we're given special compensation on top,
Okay, I think that's,
something like that, right? Because it is that important
it is.
if we're out of compliance, right? Okay,
Can you just, I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying, that the personnel bylaw change is the priority and all of these pieces underneath it are subordinate on this sheet? Or did I just miss something? I'm sorry.
no, so what I was saying is, in this case, you see these are elements of who should, but
Right.
these are not,
Correct,
this isn't subordinate to this.
correct. Okay.
And so therefore, this should have its own line item in H.
I see, sorry, I missed that. Okay, I agree with that.
Terry has our hand up again.
Yes, Barry.
Just very quickly, I want to clarify one thing. That December 6th or whatever that December date is, all you have to know by then is a general idea of what you're going to do. The exact wording of any article for a bylaw change is not due until the beginning of January. I don't have the exact date with me, but it's on the website calendar and I can find it. But that's still a very short time period, but I just wanted to clarify. In December, all I have to say would be, we're considering having an article to change the personnel bylaws in the area of XYZ. That's all you'd have to know for December, but for the beginning of January, you would have to really know exactly what you want to do.
And it's the first week of January, the first Wednesday in January. Okay, just maybe the 3rd.
All right, so let's see, where are we at? Somebody's gonna have to help me. Are we,
Job descriptions, I think that was a low, right?
Well,
We we did personal bylaw,
And the class in Concord, we talked about class. And elements.
So the frequency of classification system and elements review not being met.
And this is high because it's
High
being done
because
now,
it's being done.
right? So it's gonna make it in that high.
Okay, so that
Time frame.
personnel board not meeting personnel board charge,
Okay, so this
reviewing
one,
benefits and recommending changes. That was specifically cited as an example
Yeah.
of that. Um,
so 5 and 6 go, that's
Gonna,
one each, right?
okay,
And
that's gonna go.
yes, agreed, yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
so then we go to the personnel board role.
sorry, you're going on to the next category
The category,
elements.
right, yes.
So could we write our statement sentence that just is a trend sentence like the government communication? So I didn't get to it as well, you guys are talking this time, so. Help me craft it, please. So the personnel board recommends, it's an easy way to start each one, right? So we have some consistency. Recommends that that compliance with
Existing
with
bylaw.
an existing
Well,
or
see,
updated.
So here's the jump, I mean, if they're claiming, if this task force is claiming that we're not complying with the existing bylaw, but we're looking to change it, so I just wanna be.
I had
Well, they
put
said-
down review of personal bylaws.
Okay, and it did, yeah, it says that number 6 there,
Yeah,
so.
and again, their review of policy, personal policies and procedures as well.
I mean, it may be, Liz, that we're just,
Yeah,
all we need to do is say we're supportive of adhering to the personnel bylaw requirements. And we are prepared to change, to recommend a new personnel board charge. And the Human Resources Department, the town is currently ongoing review of the PPPs. I don't know if that's gonna be a good.
And you
instruction.
recommend a personal bylaw.
Well, we recommend supporting and adhering to the requirements stipulated by the personnel bylaw.
Yeah, I got that part.
and
We-
then,
We support a new personnel board charge.
Yeah, okay.
do we put anything like?
Or,
Or change,
should we say we support the evaluation of the current charge and, or changes to the current personnel
any
charge?
changes necessary,
But
Okay, so, and we support an evaluation and necessary changes to the personnel bylaw. I'll put the right terminology, I'm just putting PBL right now, so I get it down for us.
maybe current bylaw or if it's needed, something to that.
As needed, is that okay? So we support an evaluation and necessary changes to the personnel board bylaw. As needed,
Okay,
okay. All right, so those are the
Can we change-
major.
Can we change it to, instead of as needed, to meet the.
To meet the, okay.
to meet the needs of the employees and the community or something, it is.
Very high. Like it, that's nice. The needs of the employees and
Yeah, they can, the town.
the town, okay,
Big one.
that sounds great, I think, so again, this is just what I was trying to articulate earlier, though, because it just gives them a sense that we're on board on where we are.
I think
Yeah.
that would be a very good
Okay,
addition, contribution.
all right, and did we cover everything there? Because, and then we can put, after this, we have the high, low that we put in,
Yeah.
yeah?
Yeah, you can put them in order of priority.
Yeah,
Got it,
Can I
okay,
just note too, under the elements that the town charter is an important document to refer to in terms of governance and addressing goals and personnel board and then the town manager. And then there are 2 sections of Mass General Law that relate to bylaws and personnel boards that I think it's always good to just keep in mind and refer back to as this review is going on.
okay, so that is, I'm writing it only here, Amy, and not in our statement to the select board, so that we know when we get to action, we're gonna take that action. right? So town charter and the mass general.
Mass general laws.
Laws, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just under the elements.
Okay, but I wonder if we should, Liz, add it to the
Yeah.
elements. Because they're relevant to,
Okay, so I could say, at the end of the highfalutin language that Kate gave us, then I'll put in a paren, right, and say, note that these actions, meaning the revisions, would also consider the town charter and the mass general laws.
Mm. Yeah.
That apply. Sound good? And that's in paren. You'll see this because you'll get it tomorrow morning from me again. Okay, but, all right, I think that's a nice addition too. Okay,
so we've gone to now the personnel board role
Right.
yeah,
and
If you look at the three of them, I think they've kind of already been addressed, don't you think? The recruiting under. Oh, I guess I had put it under communication, but maybe that wasn't carried. Nice.
well, the
Recruiting.
I almost feel like the major item PB role is really more about is under governance. These are more sort of how the personnel board functions.
Right. I mean, like, number 3, we talked about up in number 7 under
Right.
communication.
Yeah,
And 2,
okay.
we've already kind of talked about under governance. And then 1, we talked about again in communication.
so Nancy, do you think maybe we could eliminate
I think we
the
could.
major item?
I think so too.
I'd agree with you.
How are you, how does that?
I'm really a stickler, aren't I? I'm sorry, I have a comment here.
No, it's literally done.
I do think that 2 and 3 are redundant. I do, and that the recruiting problem for personnel board membership,
Right.
we have Kate, we have another applicant in, I think we're in good standing to make that a high and say, we're working on that. Right, and so maybe it's not its own standalone, what is the personnel board role,
Thank you.
but
It was, okay, I thought we kind of addressed it in, I guess I had said it in mine, but, okay, whatever,
Well,
that's fine. I mean,
okay.
I have no problem.
to governance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that piece maybe is the governance and the other two, yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna eliminate that as a major item
Yeah,
and we'll
Okay.
eliminate the 3 elements.
Okay.
And the 3-sided deficiencies, okay. So then we go to HR. Personnel policies and procedures. Okay, clarity and accessibility. PPP clarity and accessibility. You need to determine low, medium, or high.
So we're gonna be reviewing them. That comes under governance, right?
Yeah.
The clarity and,
Accessibility, I think those are high, because they are being addressed, right?
Yeah,
A little bit overlapping.
yeah.
also the second one,
Now, can I, Nancy, just excuse me.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Is, Liz, are you going to then? You're gonna create a combined priority
Yes.
for,
Okay, I'll put in our HMLs.
yes, but we're not gonna do individually what each person,
We've kind of been doing that, though, right?
right, but I guess, so that's my
It will
question.
be from all of us. though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't need,
On here as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
we don't need the detail.
not mine.
Yeah, right,
yeah, I agree with that.
I think that makes
All right.
perfectly good sense.
And the comp and benefits is being done, is high, because it's being done by, Kelly's group, right, Kelly?
It's.
The whole thing.
They are doing a benefits analysis as
Okay.
part of the classification study.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So the next cited deficiency in this particular section was on HR matters, employees want more transparency than.
Are you on
What is that?
employee relations or you are in
Am I
HR?
in
In the
the, oh,
HR?
okay, maybe. I didn't
HR
know.
we
Wait,
did,
sorry.
right?
Yeah.
You're set. Liz on HR.
So is that correct? So I'm sorry, I was a little bit just
No, I.
discombobulated. So comp and benefits, number 2
Is high because
Is
we
high.
weren't done yet.
All right.
And that's
is also high. So we're high on that. And so what is our summary statement for HR in that case? Because this is really employee focused, right?
So can you bring in HR gov and just say, this is, this is work with this HR gov updates, I mean.
Well, I mean, you might, a third-party vendor presently engaged for comprehensive review of Concord's non-union workforce or something like that. I don't think we can just.
Yeah, because it's already been done, right?
So I captured almost all of that. So the personnel board recommends that the current work with a third-party vendor in HR Gov for comprehensive review of comp and benefits of non-union employees is ongoing, has been initiated,
Yes.
right? So,
And I think that's all we need to say. I mean, we're not
and should
capable.
address, could we say, and should address listed concerns or
Well, we don't know what the results are going to be.
has been initiated?
Yeah.
We'll stop there.
Yep.
All right, and then that, Terry, I think maybe if, I don't know how, if we're loud enough for you to follow that conversation, but I'm hopeful that these statements, if then the person, the select board has questions, those statements will help them to understand the general direction of where we're headed. And then you can ask questions on the underlying things, because those line items will be listed high and so forth. Just trying to make it as easy as possible for the dialogue to get initiated. Does that sound like we're headed there?
Yeah, I think you don't need to spend a lot of time on those statements, because you're right, they're just a way to initiate the dialogue.
Yeah, that's right. All right,
Okay.
well, great, because we have 20 minutes left, we only have 2 categories left to go through. So I think we're doing.
We should be under this kind of constraint every time.
Well, we do have the need to make certain that the citizens, it looks like we had a couple here.
Oh, that's right.
That they can have an opportunity when we're through. So we're now going to go on to employee relations, responsiveness, performance feedback, work-related issues. Those are the elements.
So one thing I've highlighted in my preparations is that number 3, timelines and quality of performance feedback. And my understanding is that's on the list and in the documentation because there hasn't been regular feedback for employees, and that, therefore it's raised to this level of commentary, right?
I think
Yeah.
the only caveat that I would interject is it's
The role
not
of the
everybody, it's not every, we don't want to suggest that all managers, directors, whatever level, are not doing a timely and quality job.
So could we
So
say
we just-
consistency of?
Well,
something like
I
that?
don't, I just want to make certain that we're on the same page, that
Yeah,
it's a statement made as a result of a survey
yeah,
that did not have everybody. I'm just,
understood. I'm taking it from the deficiency
Okay.
list.
Okay.
Right, so I'm not commenting on the nuances, I'm
Okay.
commenting on that statement, timelines and quality of performance. So we could say consistency across, something like that, right? To say we
Yeah.
take this seriously.
yes, right,
Right, and that should be an easy, that's not for us to fix, but to advise that it is. Paid attention, is
right.
followed up on, right? So in that way, because we're only saying, that's a good idea,
Mhm.
I think we could say hi, because
Okay.
then it's a recommendation that should be followed through, but in fact, and I'm not trying to be lazy here, but we are not implementing that solution, we
Right.
are recommending
Right.
that the right approach is taken. Yeah, okay, all right, so we're okay to put high on number 3. All right, and then performance feedback, work-related performance feedback, I'm not sure those high percentage of employees possessing lack of trust in HR. All
Yeah,
right, this one, the performance feedback is number 3, right?
Right.
And work-related issues is number 2.
I don't even know how to rate this, a high percentage of employees possessing lack of trust in HR, I mean, how would you even?
I agree, and in fact, I think what I wrote down on mine was ongoing. I mean,
Yeah,
it is something that was cited,
Right.
so we don't wanna not recognize that,
Right.
but at the same time. I think it deserves its, I mean, I used ongoing.
Ongoing, I would use ongoing,
okay, yeah,
Because-
I'd be okay with that.
because I had put in the lack of understanding in relation to our role, the personal policies, the procedures, the stuff. You know, that ongoing, hopefully we can make that better for them.
Okay, so
Did we
then,
do the first one, timeliness of addressing employee concerns, did we? talk about that?
We didn't.
I don't know if you want to put transparency in there somehow. Make sure that, you know. And I'm sorry, what did you say?
No, the number 1 over there, timeliness of addressing employee concerns. I mean, it's high, but I'm just looking at this list and we got a lot of highs here, and so.
But
I'm
I-
not sure how you're gonna choose that.
We will be careful about
Yeah.
what we could do in that situation,
Yeah.
so I'm not so worried about how many there are.
And also, like, in other words, we don't usually hear anything unless they're coming before us, so it would be low until, we wouldn't know anything until they came before us, and then we would put it on high at our meeting, so. I think,
I think what we're trying, and we need to try to communicate. And I'm not sure if what's here is all that helpful, but. We want the employees to know that we think about this, that we're concerned about it. And that we are a body of people who, you know, who are. Who want to support. The employees. The managers and the town, so. There are a lot of constituents here on this timeliness.
I mean, I would, given that, I guess I'd rate it moderate, but I'm also moderate to high.
I think we're gonna. Liz, do you have a?
So I'm trying to capture the language here and say the personnel board recommends ongoing engagement to address employee satisfaction with town governance and build confidence that there are efficient and effective. I could say efficient because we had the word transparent stated, right? Efficient, effective, and transparent. Maybe we should say known processes. For what is it, being heard, for feedback?
feedback from employees, yeah.
Feedback.
Use that in feedback.
All right, so the issue with this one is, and I think we've stated that, but I just want to be clear that when we say we recommend ongoing engagement to address. The agencies which would address are not just this board.
Mhm.
All right, it's HR department, it's, when I said town governance, that was to be an umbrella statement,
Yeah.
all right? Okay, all right, just to be clear, that's why I use town governance.
So then we go to the compensation and benefits.
Yeah.
And the elements are competitiveness and classification plan.
And so those are,
And 1 and 2, lack of competitiveness with other municipalities was cited as a deficiency.
so those would both be high because they're class and comp working on them now.
I think that's a good place.
Does it have to be its own separate category? It looks like it's repetitious from the section above that says HR, where it says comp and benefits. Just a consideration, should those be combined or just be left separately?
With employee relations.
You know,
Or
where it says HR, says comp and benefits,
Oh, I see, yeah.
and it just, naturally, I wanted to group all those four things
Well,
together.
yeah, I mean, it's possible to combine.
All right, so I put an arrow up,
Okay.
and so with the summary,
Thank you.
I'll do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so we are down to 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Of those focus areas.
And if the select board feels otherwise, I mean,
Yeah,
we
Yeah,
can
no, I
take up
think
the maybe
that's
15 or 20, depending upon how they feel,
yeah,
or maybe not.
yeah.
Okay.
Can we,
And then we'll shorten the years on board.
Okay, got some.
so, I just wanted to, if we're moving those two pieces of the HR, can you reread the statement that we had?
Oh, yeah, but just know that we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so the HR statement that we have now is the personnel board recommends that the current work with the third-party vendor, HR Gov, for comprehensive review of comp and benefits of non-union employees recommends and has been initiated. That doesn't really make sense. So we do have to work on that. And we have 10 minutes. So.
Well, it's really important to me that we finish the draft. Because
Yeah.
there's actually
Okay.
section D, which
Okay,
is on
okay.
page 3.
So I'll work on that. So
Okay.
please take a strong look at the HR statement.
Okay,
All right,
sure.
and I'll try to.
Does everyone feel good about what we've accomplished?
Yeah,
I mean,
very good.
I think we've been quite
Efficiency.
efficient, yeah.
Extremely.
I think we're very committed to doing this.
Okay, Chuck,
Okay.
what's in it?
So now, there were two issues that I felt were important to make mention of. Now, this may not you may not feel appropriate for the personnel board to comment, and you have every right to do that. I'm in all likelihood going to make mention of these as the chair, but town turnover statistics. What got communicated is that the town has a turnover of 50% over the past 5 months. Well, that is not how you tabulate turnover. And I want to, and the reason here is that there was 5 months of data, and I give the example that if you had 12 months of data, then you'd have a turnover, and if the turnover was 10% a month, you'd have 120% turnover in 12 months, which means you terminated people who haven't even been hired. So the logic of 50% turnover just is not appropriate. And I think that in my judgment, we need to focus on not the numbers, but we need to focus on the challenges of recruiting and retaining. But the last thing we want, I think, as a city, is to have a reputation that we have 50% turnover. Because that's not true.
So was the 50% turnover, was that a comment in one of in the forum that was held, or was that?
Yes.
I don't, yeah, it's not
That was,
in the appendix.
it was,
Okay.
this came about as a result of the forum that took place.
Okay, all right.
But
In the big garage.
and the big, yeah, and I don't think that we want to have the reputation that we have a 50% turnover.
I think it was over years, not months. I thought they said 5 years, 10% a year.
10% over 5 years.
Right.
So,
Well,
Bill, I think if you go into this and it's in the documents, you're doing exactly the thing you want to avoid doing.
Yeah.
Because it was only spoken at that meeting, and if Kelly's right, that it was over a 5-year period, we've lost 50%. It's then we're gonna get into minutia. Give the example. So I think that your view of statistics is, I will always bow to that knowledge. I think that's important because of your experience, and that's realistic. I just think that if we put too much emphasis on it in our
Okay.
presentation to the select board,
okay,
it'll minimize. However, I think that the focus should be on challenges of recruiting and retaining employees. I think that's a key statement.
yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
And I also think it would be good for us to have a monthly basis or something to know what's happening with our employees.
Yes.
Yeah, and we
We
in
would
the
get from you, Amy, that, you know, who's retired, who's taking another job? Is it
Yeah.
because they're moving or is it because it's a better, you know what I mean? Just to give it, I mean, can you do that? Is that?
Yes,
Well, I get concerned because then it starts getting into things that are private to the employee about why they left, and there's usually multiple stories involved, or there's not. But
Okay.
there can be,
Okay.
and so,
I hear you.
you know, that
We have to be careful.
Yeah.
how we
you
approach that.
anonymize the data, right?
Right.
You don't want to say names, that's surely true, that's fine.
Right,
But a report to this to the personnel board that says, we've had turnover, this department is particularly wanting. Because what we need to initiate, and my emphasis, my next statement in this, I hope we could do, but it's a consensus agreement, would be. To start to say we need to initiate more support to find these employees, because that's a hardship, right? So how do we get
Well-
there, but I don't think we can get there if we don't have a clear picture of the trends by department. So that's what I'd like to know.
So if I'm hearing it correctly, you're looking for, I don't disagree, data to help provide the necessary guidance to what should we as a personnel board do, or what could we suggest to the.
Right.
There is,
Manager, select
as
board,
we know,
right.
there is no panacea
no,
here.
right,
And in terms of hyperbole, you know, it would be nice to get away from that in terms of being specific, in terms of
yes.
what can happen.
Exactly,
But, you know, you take a look at any industry. I went up to Apple, and they don't have enough genius people. And you go to Barrels, and they don't have enough people. I mean, so it's a pervasive
Right.
issue.
yes.
So anyway, I just think we should be careful about how we approach this.
Yeah, me too, and because it's so pervasive, I don't think, I think it needs to be a town engaged recognition.
Yeah.
Of, there's a challenge here that is not just sitting in one department, but we all have to
Yes,
think about where are we recruiting and how can we help? So, you know, this, as you say, it happened everywhere, so very briefly, my employer, Merck, what we ended up doing is all of us in the leadership team using our LinkedIn networks to find the appropriate skilled individuals for certain jobs, right? So there's something beyond saying HR is not finding them that we need to do as a community, I'd say.
but I
Which
bet
is
you,
not a panacea.
you still had open jobs even after that particular tactic,
Yes.
which is, you know,
Right.
but it was a constructive,
Right.
helpful suggestion.
Right, but it also meant, Bill, that it was all of our problems,
Exactly.
right? It
And it's-
wasn't like,
that's
wow,
right.
you can't fill your role, it was, hey, what can I do to help you? It's a different attitude,
It's different attitude.
that's where I think we could add in that kind of,
Right, okay,
let's support the town kind
exactly.
of statement after that.
But as a personnel board, how would we support recruitment? I mean, I guess I don't.
Well, one thing and I've said this before, it's in the November 9 minutes, is I was opposed to the new job description without understanding what the strategy for hiring is. And I would say that that's another piece of this, is that if we don't understand what is the town manager's strategy on hiring, it's very difficult for us to help with recruiting. But what I'm thinking is, that it's not just the personnel board, but the personnel board might, in its report to the select board, say, you know, this is a real hardship for the town because we don't have XYZ employees, and here's where we're looking. And Bill, I think this is aligned with why you pulled out the data,
Mhm.
because this data, whether it's 5 months or 5 years, it doesn't tell us where the problem is, it just says there's a big problem.
Right, and that's not helpful. for
Yeah.
anybody.
And don't
Yeah.
forget, 3 of the years were COVID.
Right.
So seriously, and so many people don't even return now, so
Yeah.
it's pretty hard to say. A lot of people just left and decided they just wouldn't come back.
Right.
People that, like now, people that worked at home that can't really work at home anymore, are like looking at what else they're gonna do.
Yeah,
So the market is still really pretty bad.
yeah.
Terry,
Yeah.
you had your hand up.
Right, I think that this discussion you're having is important. I think just you did a really good job highlighting which are high priorities, moderate and low priorities. I think it's important to mention anything you disagree with in the report. So just to mention, and get on the record, as Bill has here, that that statistic that they cite in the report is not correct. And similarly, Bill, you have a second point you made that I don't have it right in front of me, but that also, just to mention them, but not to get in a discussion, just go right immediately to, well, how can we improve? And one of the things was a high priority, I think, of getting monthly reports or quarterly reports with statistics. And I think that would help a lot if the personnel board was getting those reports. Then you can start figuring out how to improve. But, just get it right to the positive and don't get into any discussion with Paul McCone or anything, but
So,
to get it on the record that you disagree with us.
so I think that, Terry, thank you. The next point, which I have, is the employee or citizen survey. Because of some hiccups, major hiccups, we didn't get the final report for probably a month after it had initially been. So there, in my mind, being a confidential, it's communicated as being confidential, has to be confidential. You cannot have people in town being given that version. So on the positive, in order to avoid this in the future and a repeat, my last sentence here is I suggest that the select board ask the town manager for a guide document for governing, managing future surveys. I mean, I think it's that simple.
I agree with that.
I think it's that simple.
Completely, absolutely.
Sure.
And that's all I would intend to say. I've had my say at the forum and probably in other forums or other situations as well, because I feel strongly.
I would go a step further and just, I've done some qualitative, building surveys and trying to analyze qualitative data. And I feel there's like an art and science to it, and there are people that spend their lives that are dedicated to doing that, to try and ask questions in a way that you're getting the most real, unbiased, impartial answers that you can, so the data is really useful.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and if that's something that and I know that costs money, so but I just wanted to sort of if that could be part of this, I think it
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you for adding that. All right, so I'm going to push us ahead to citizen comments. Looks like we have two people. There's Mr. Perry, so I'm assuming you'd like to speak. No hand?
Well, I will speak. Thank you, Mr. Moracek. Very good discussion. In previous meetings, there have been discussions about dialogues with the town manager. And you've had a lot of discussion today about the select board and communicating with the select board. But I would also encourage you to meet at least once or twice a year with the town manager, so you can really assist the town manager. As Mr. Moracek, you were working on warrant articles where you're going to only be working with the town manager. I don't think you should be only working with the town manager, but I think you should meet with the town manager to provide him or her assistance as you are able to, along with the HR director. But great, very good discussion today, and thank you very much, all of you, for entering into that. I believe Ms. Techley has some comments as well. Thank you.
I want to reiterate what Ned has said. This was really a very productive meeting, and I appreciate the time and effort you have put into it. A couple of comments on Bill's draft. And I think one under the elements, I think it was an oversight because you did talk about it. I would add, under communication, I would add employees as a category. You did obviously bring that up, but to be consistent in your document, and employees are an important element in terms of improving communications. In answer to something that Kate said is, where is it that the requirement that there be monthly reports from the HR department to the personnel board? That is in the charge, which you cited was 1985. So that needs to be updated, but those reports haven't been done in many years.
I'm sorry, Anita, could you say that again? I'm just trying to capture, so, it's in the.
Kate had asked a question. She couldn't find it in any of the documents where it was a requirement that reports be given to the personnel board from the HR department, and it's in the committee charge that happened. And again, that hasn't been updated, but it is the charge of record. The other element, I know, Bill, you and I have talked about this, and at no point in the report does it say anything about 10% a month. It was 10% a year. Originally, the report was looking at data provided by the retirement board, which included retirement in those numbers. In the end, we used the data provided by the HR department, and it's close to 10% a year. It's over 50% over 5 years. At no point is anywhere in the document or a draft or earlier draft was it talked by month. It was always on an annual basis. So I'm not sure where you picked that up, but that isn't in the report, and it was not stated at the hearing. And in the final document, it's the actual turnover data provided by the HR department. But you've come a long way here with the discussion and with your priorities, and I'm very grateful. I think the employees will be as well.
All right, thank you for your comments and input. I don't think we have anyone else, so I think we can entertain a.
Make one point of clarification, because Kate was asking, I think that what Kate was looking for was reports about complaints and issues. And I think that in the administrative code, where it says it's a monthly report of appointments to position. So I guess I just wanted to, that was how I understood your question. So I just wanted to make sure that. Okay.
So, and Amy, that clarification is, and Kate, Kate was looking for a monthly report of appointments to positions, not retirements and departures. Is that what you're clarifying?
Okay. Right. So when Kate asked me earlier, I thought about where does it say that there would be reports. I thought she was asking where about complaints and issues.
Yes, I was talking about complaints and issues, not about turnover or hires or separations. Yeah.
Right. And then what the administrative code says about reports is that it's a monthly report of appointments to positions under the wage and salary classification plan. Mm-hmm. So that was just different, but it was just because Anita just said that it's in the code. So I think I just want to clarify, I think we were talking about two different types of reports, that's all.
All right, I'm not sure I'm going to get that very clear. Okay.
I apologize. I didn't understand Kate's question. So in retrospect, that if that's what you were talking about, that isn't what I heard. So that's a good clarification. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think one thing we've learned is that sometimes what we think we hear, we don't hear, and what we want to hear, we sometimes don't hear. Obviously, having a meeting like this is great to be able to have everybody have an input. And thank you to Mr. Perry and technically, then we're accomplishing what we need to do. So I think we're ready to entertain a motion to adjourn.
All right.
So moved.
All right. Second. All right. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Thank you all.
It was wonderful.
Thank you for a great meeting.
Thanks very much.